Hello, Mark.
Hi, how are
How
you?
are you? I am very glad to host you in our Polish channel. I would like to talk with you about situation in the US. But first of all, because it seems you are first time in our channel, you are hosted in our channel, I would like that you introduce in a very short manner of yourself to our Polish viewers.
I'd be glad to, Jan. I've been translated into Polish, a number of my books. I've been designated America's Economist this last year by the Las Vegas Money Show people, and recognizing my efforts to teach sound economics to anyone who can hear me. And I have a pretty good background in that respect. I have 3 degrees in economics. I run businesses, so I have a lot of experience in accounting and business management. I run the Freedom Fest conference every year in Las Vegas and other cities. This year it'll be in Palm Springs in June. I've written maybe 25 books. So I've taught at Columbia Business School and other major universities. I've given lectures. I've been to 80 countries. So I consider myself an economic junkie in a sense. I now teach at Chapman University out in California. And I think I'll just take these glasses off since I can see fine without them. I now hold the Doty Spogli Chair of Free Enterprise at Chapman University. I'm a presidential fellow there and have been for 10 years. I have 2 books in particular that I think one has been, maybe both of them have been translated into Polish. One's called Economic Logic. It's my free market textbook that is in its 6th edition. And then I have a book called The Making of Modern Economics, which is the history of all the great economic thinkers. You'll see in the background there my totem pole of economics. And if you can recognize the top one, can you see who that is?
No.
It's Adam Smith.
Adam Smith.
Top.
Yeah. Your favorite person, historical person.
Exactly. The Making of Modern Economics makes him the hero. That book, by the way, is unique in the history of thought because it has an actual plot. It has a hero, Adam Smith, and his system of natural liberty. And then you have there's 2 individuals below Adam Smith there. One's John Maynard Keynes, and the other is Karl Marx. Karl Marx is low man on the totem pole. And so those are the enemies of Adam Smith, and they have had a major battle. And then in the end, Adam Smith is defended and triumphs in the end with the help of the Austrian school, the French laissez-faire school, the Chicago School of Economics, and the Supply Side School. So after the collapse of the Berlin Wall and the Soviet central planning system, which was a big celebration for Poland and other Eastern European countries. That's what I do. I really try to focus on teaching sound economics to people all around the world.
Okay, so maybe call you a libertarian, American libertarian?
Well, I try to avoid labels as much as possible because, that's probably the best designation to feel comfortable with. But I like to focus on best solutions and adopting sound economics wherever we can find it. There's insights from all 3 of these economists, and they all made mistakes as well. So I don't want to be labeled particularly. And in fact, I think we hurt ourselves where we're constantly labeling each other right wing, left wing, liberal, conservative, libertarian, and stuff like that. I would just like to go where sound economics teaches us to go to. And I think in general, that means a free market economy. But I'm not an anarchist. I do believe there's a legitimate role for government, and I outline that in my economic logic textbook. That becomes clear in my writings that I think it's foolish to think that government's going to somehow disappear. It's just not going to happen. So what we want to do is limit government to its legitimate functions. Frederick Bastiat talked about that in the law. And that's my approach. Adam Smith being the probably one of the better examples of limited government.
So another question: this sculpture behind you, is it your own design or you bought it?
I created the design, and then I had actually had a Native American sculpture design this, and it's been around for about 10 years. But I created this because I don't like the political spectrum, left, right, where you have the extreme right, you have Adam Smith, the extreme left, you have Karl Marx. Well, of course, you should reject all extremism. And who's in the middle? Big government, John Maynard Keynes. So I don't like the political spectrum. So I said, well, let's create this sculpture where it's top down. And my best quote is from Ronald Reagan, who said, there is no left or right, only up or down. So I came up with the totem pole idea to put Adam Smith at the top, Marx at the bottom, and Keynes in the middle to represent the three represent, and they will always be around. Those three philosophies of totalitarian Marxism, the rejection of capitalism, one level, and then at the other level you have Adam Smith and laissez-faire, limited government, and then you have big government in the middle. Those three philosophies are going to be with us forever.
Okay, thank you very much. So now let's switch to the United States and the period before Trump was elected. What was the state of the US economy before Trump's election? I mean, are Donald Trump's actions are justified because of bad state of US economy?
Certainly the stock market was doing better under sleepy Joe Biden than it was under Trump, who's a disruptor. And he does this on purpose. Trump is an egomaniac. It's everything about him. He loves it that we're talking about him right now. And I think that's unfortunate. But let's talk about best solutions, because he's raising an issue. I'm actually glad that this whole trade issue has become front and center, because this gives us, you and I and free market economists, an opportunity to teach sound economics and why free trade and globalization is good. And as I've been talking to the media and writing articles, I do a free e-letter called Skousen Cafe. Cafe stands for Center for Economics and Finance, Austrian Economics and Finance. We need to do a cost-benefit analysis. Sure, there are benefits to bringing back manufacturing to your own country. You want to be America first? Well, maybe Poland first. How about England first? How about France? How about China first? I mean, we're all nationalistic to some extent. But I like Ben Franklin the best. I think Ben Franklin was the best symbol of the greatness of America. And he was a big believer in globalization. You know, he liked the big city life. He liked modern technology. He lived in London. He lived in France, England, Paris. He lived in the United States. And he was very global oriented. And here's what he said: He said, the system of America is commerce with all and war with none. And I like that. And he said, no nation was ever ruined by trade. We need to re-establish the law of comparative advantage that David Ricardo developed in the early 19th century, where you produce products where the cost is the lowest, and that means an international supply chain. And it was actually working quite well prior to this disruption by Donald Trump. And he's a protectionist. I don't know. He seems to say a lot of things that are just inaccurate, to say the middle class has been destroyed by the Chinese and the Mexicans and the Europeans because they took jobs away. Well, yeah, it's disruptive. You create jobs, you lose jobs. It's called, Schumpeter called it creative destruction. I prefer Clay Christensen's term, creative disruption. Some jobs you're going to lose in automobiles and textiles in the United States. That manufacturing base is moving to China, it's moving to Mexico, it's moving to Eastern Europe. This global economy is a good thing because let's face it, we're helping create jobs all around the world. We shouldn't just focus on creating jobs in the United States at the expense of the Mexicans or the Chinese. We gave hope for the Chinese people for the first time. The economies of Eastern Europe, of Hungary and Poland, they're booming. Why? Because you have an international market. You don't just produce for your own country, right? I mean, exports and imports, trade in each country is substantial. It's increasing in the United States. It used to be 10% of GDP. Now it's 25%. I believe in your country, I suspect that maybe 50% of your GDP is with exports and stuff. I don't know. It's probably pretty substantial.
Yeah.
And do we want to reverse that? No. I think no. We want everyone to benefit. Trade is by nature, if it's voluntary, trade is a win-win situation for both buyer and seller. This is what was taught from Ricardo, Bastiat, Adam Smith. So I think it's anything but a liberation day when Trump imposed those kind of tariffs. Now, if it results in lower tariffs and even free trade among countries, because many countries have barriers to protect their own industries, I understand that. I mean, Canada has milk restrictions on our milk and beef and so on going into Canada, and they have the same reversal to us. I don't like those kind of restrictions, but if we can reduce those regulations, more power to Trump. But the way he's talking right now, it sounds really a very dangerous policy. And that's why the stock market is fallen so sharply, is because globalization, it's a warning. It's a warning that Trump is going down the wrong road if he means to increase tariffs across the board.
And how do you perceive Donald Trump's being in power so far? I mean, how you judge his actions?
Well, he's very aggressive. He reminds me of the concept of the benevolent dictator. Benevolent dictator. Of course, you can go back to Mussolini. He was the benevolent dictator, or Perón, Juan Perón in Argentina, the strong man. He views himself as one of these strong men. I mean, Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore was a strong man, and Mao was a strong man. And these people have the good side and they have their bad side. In the case of Trump, I like a lot of his policies of deregulation, income tax cuts, having a better legal system to enter the United States as immigrants. I mean, I'm not in favor of just closing the border. You've got to, America was built on immigration, so I'm in favor of a liberal immigration policy. And so would Adam Smith and Milton Friedman and all the free market economists. And I'm glad to see him reverse the woke culture and all the stuff about transgenders and this kind of, I'm more a traditionalist in that respect. So I favor a lot of the things that he's done in that respect. But every one of these benevolent dictators, they always have a weakness. And Trump's weakness is that he's a Luddite. He's a protectionist. If you remember the Luddites, they burned the textile factories because it was taking away their jobs. And he has kind of the same mentality about the jobs being taken away by the foreigners, by the Chinese and the Mexicans and stuff like that. And it's a very narrow perspective. As I tell my students, out of the 3 factors of production, land, labor, and capital, what is the most flexible? I mean, it's obviously labor. Labor can be retrained. You can be laid off and find another job. It's sometimes difficult. I don't think it's something that we should say, oh, it's no problem. There is a problem, and you do need to help people find new employment, but they can do it. You can't do it with capital goods and land. That's pretty restrained or restricted in the sense. But labor can adjust, and we have adjusted in the United States. You have adjusted in Poland. In these other countries, we've all had to change jobs. We've been laid off before. I don't know what your situation is, but I'm sure you've had different positions in life, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's just part of life.
Yeah, yeah.
And Trump seems to ignore that. He seems to think, well, bring the man, keep everything the same like it was 40 years ago. Well, were the American cars any good 40 years ago compared to the Germans? No, they weren't. The Germans built much better cars. And the Japanese now Toyota makes the most reliable cars in the world now. We have 3 Avalons in our household, and we hardly ever have to take them in for repairs. That wasn't the case with the Ford or General Motors car. And frankly, it wasn't the case with Mercedes-Benz either. Those are always going into the shop for various problems. So we all learn from each other. Foreign competition is really a good thing. It's kept costs down. It's given us an increase in the variety, and you can have fruit year-round, year-round because of international trade. I mean, you can be in the winter time and you can have fresh fruit. That's all because of globalization.
Yeah. And what do you think, what Donald Trump wants to achieve by introducing these tariffs?
Well, he has 2 motivations, and we're not really sure which one's going to be the final determination. The first one is he feels that Americans have been given a raw deal with unfair trading practices. Certainly true that the United States has led the world in globalization and lower tariffs. If you look at historically, we had very high tariffs in the 19th century, and they've gradually declined through a variety of trade agreements. And we got it down to 2 to 3% for goods and services. So China, Mexico, Europe, everybody was sending our goods, and they were much cheaper to be built and made outside the United States. I still remember going into a Walmart and buying a nice basketball for $5. A leather basketball for $5. Well, how's that possible? Well, it was made in China. Well, so what happened, because that basketballs used to be made in the United States, Televisions used to be made in the United States. Most cars for Americans were made by the big three automobile manufacturers. I asked my students the other day, I had 35 students in my class at Chapman University. And I said, by show of hands, how many of you have an American car? Not a single hand went up, not one. It was pretty shocking. So that's a big change over time. So we've had to adjust to that. So the Trump wants to bring back an old era. He's been talking about this for 40 years of bringing back manufacturing to the U.S. So the Rust Belt, we're going to go back to the pre-Rust Belt era. Well, that's just a pipe dream. If he thinks that you can bring manufacturing back to the U.S., he's got another thing coming. He's in denial of what the benefits of globalization. And these supply chains are so complex. And I don't know if you've been reading, but US made cars, for example, 40% of the 30,000 auto parts that go into an automobile, 30,000, 40% come from outside the US. So he's just dreaming. But instead of dreaming, he's created a nightmare for us. So I don't know what his motivation is. It's either we want to bring down the unfair tariffs that other countries are imposing in the U.S., or he wants to return us to an old era. And so he's of two minds. So here's the real question. Countries are now coming, governments are now coming to Trump and saying, hey, we'll go to zero tariffs if you go to zero tariffs. So they're playing it the other way around. So Israel, Australia, and Vietnam have all said, we'll go to zero tariffs if you go to zero tariffs. So that'll be the real test to see if Trump is willing to go along with that. And so far, I don't think he is. And this is why he's created a real nightmare in the whole globalization. It's like, can you really return the toothpaste back into the tube? No, you really can't. It's out there.
Yeah.
So he's he's kicking against the pricks, as they say in the Bible.
Yeah. So I would like that you play some role of some kind of a prophet. Can you say how do you see the nearest future of the US and Donald Trump? What will happen in next months?
I think that business people in particular are now realizing how disastrous this policy is, where you have numerous, you're talking about thousands of different tariff rates on each individual company and each good and service. In the United States, we had like 2.8% or something like that for practically every good that came into America. That's very simple. But if you have a big blue book and you're listing all the different items and what their retaliatory tariffs are, it's a nightmare. And I think business, especially, I read the other day where one of the major shippers from Asia who bring over those big ships and that bring in raw materials and products and so forth from Asia, 39% are on hold. There's a pause because you don't know, are these, once you get there, you have to pay these tariffs and you don't know what the tariffs are, especially from China. So it's freezing the accounts. And Tim Cook of Apple said, if we have to build the iPhone, assemble the iPhone in the United States, the price is going to double or triple for an iPhone. Even, as I mentioned, US cars use 40% goods auto parts from outside the US, those prices are going to go up. Costs are going to go up. And you know, there are some goods, some products that are semi-manufactured that go back and forth across the border 7 times before they're finished. Are you hitting them with the tariff every time they cross over? I mean, it's just insane. And this is why Elon Musk, who builds 70% of his Tesla cars in China, is saying, what in the hell is going on? We can't operate this way. So he went directly to Mr. Trump and said, listen, you got to back off this and do it quickly. And he's having a big debate with Peter Navarro, who I call Peter Moron. He's one of the very few economists, got his PhD at Harvard from a professor who was free market, free trade. So I don't know how Peter Navarro suddenly became a protectionist, but he's the most dangerous person in the White House right now in that respect. So my feeling is, if Trump has any political sense, which he thinks he does, he's going to have to back off, because he's getting so much criticism now. People are finally realizing how dangerous this policy is, that I think they'll back off and hopefully start listening, because the Republicans are going to lose big time with this tariff problem in the midterm elections that are coming up next year, the year after.
Some libertarians are saying that Donald Trump will get Bangladeshization of the economy, of American economy, because he violates the law of comparative advantage. So the American will be doing more simple works. What is your opinion on this?
Well, Musso Ayao, who was the president of the Mount Pelerin Society, and he was the founder of the Universidad Francisco Marroquín in Guatemala. I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah, I know.
He's passed away.
Yeah.
But he said the law of comparative advantage is the most important concept in economics. And he wrote a whole little book on it. And in a sense, he's correct. I mean, there's lots of tenets of free market economics, but the law of comparative advantage is extremely important. Basically, what it's saying is that you go to wherever the lowest cost to produce the product is. And yes, the U.S. can produce cars, but it's cheaper to produce them somewhere else. So it's better that we produce the cars outside the United States and import them, or import at least the auto parts, than it is to produce them ourselves. Same thing with televisions. We can produce televisions, we can produce iPhones, but it's going to cost a lot more. The law of comparative advantage says it's not whether you can produce the product or not, but at what cost. Adam Smith made this point. Britain can produce wine, but it's cheaper to produce wine in France, where they have a comparative advantage. And and Britain has a comparative advantage in textiles. And even today, a suit with British cloth, English cloth, is considered one of the best. And when you go to Hong Kong to have a suit made, it's probably British cloth to produce that suit. Maybe the suit you have, I don't know. But, but tailor-made suits are often made with British cloth.
Yeah.
So whenever I'd go to Hong Kong, it wasn't Chinese cloth, it was British cloth. And by the way, Hong Kong is a really good example of what we're talking about, because they decided to have a free trade zone. So there's no tax on exports or imports, and you can import and export anything in Hong Kong. It's a free trade zone. And it's interesting. Right up until the time the Chinese came back in and have taken Hong Kong back, Hong Kong went from the poorest country in Asia, to the richest in a per capita basis because of the foresight of the British, not in India, which was a disaster with the British in India, but in Hong Kong, it was hands off. It was laissez-faire. And they have a flat tax system that's fairly low, 16.5%. They have no sales tax, I think they do have Social Security now and a few other welfare programs, but no tax on interest, dividends, capital gains, no tax on foreign investment, and no tax on exports or imports. They do have a substantial real estate tax. That's pretty heavy. And it makes sense because real estate is so expensive in Hong Kong. So that's how they finance their government.
Okay, so thank you for this description of the situation in the United States. And now I would like to ask you some information about the Freedom Fest, because you can be considered as a father of this event, aren't you?
Well, my feeling has been all along for many years that we were losing the battle of liberty, that all of us were like a herd of cats going in all kinds of different directions. And I said to myself, well, maybe it's time we have a national or international, once a year, we all get together, all the freedom lovers from all around the world. If you can afford to come to the United States, and we chose Las Vegas as our destination because there's lots of cheap flights to Las Vegas for the gambling and so forth. But it's a very libertarian town in many ways. You have a lot of personal freedom, economic freedom, and low cost and decent hotels, and it's a convention town. It's great for large conventions. So we get 2,000 to 3,000 people coming from all over the world, mainly the United States because it's cheaper. But we have people from all over the world. I think you've been there before, and maybe not, but I think so.
Yeah, I was twice. Yeah, yes. 10 years ago. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so we all live busy lives, but can we come together 3 or 4 days and learn from each other, network, socialize, and celebrate liberty? And it's a wonderful experience, as you know. You walk into that exhibit hall, which is just a buzz with excitement. We have a huge bookstore that has all of these different books on free markets and free minds and that sort of thing. We have wonderful speakers. We've even had Donald Trump speak, but we've had William Shatner, Star Trek. We had George Foreman, the heavyweight champion of the world. We have Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful. We had Mike Rowe of Dirty Jobs a year or two ago. We had John Cleese, the British comedian. We've really had some exciting speakers. And so this year, we've decided we're in Palm Springs, California, which is kind of the place for Hollywood actors and directors and screenwriters would seclude themselves to come together and write scripts and just relax and get away from all the heavy duty overnight, a constant craziness going on in Hollywood. So we're coming together for that, and we have a lot of great speakers that are coming together this year. And so if people go to freedomfest.com, that's our website, freedomfest.com, they can find all about our speakers, who our topics. We're going to have a big debate on this tariff issue. That's our main theme at the Global Economic Summit at Freedom Fest. We have Jim Rogers coming from Singapore. We have Barbara Combe coming from Vienna, and maybe Jan you can come from Poland or something. I don't know.
Yeah. And what about Steve Forbes?
Yes, Steve Forbes is our co-ambassador, along with John Mackey, the Whole Foods CEO of Whole Foods, the former CEO. So Steve Forbes travels internationally. He's the winner of the Dodie Spogley Free Enterprise Award this year. which will be presented to him at Chapman University later this month. So yes, he's a regular. In fact, I'll tell you, this is my favorite Steve Forbes story. So the first time I invited him to speak at Freedom Fest, maybe 15 years ago, his secretary said, yes, he would love to speak at Freedom Fest. And I said, so can he come for all 3.5 days? And he says, oh, no, you need to understand Mr. Forbes is extremely busy, and he will fly in, give his speech, sign a few books, and then he's going to leave the same day. So I said, okay, well, at least glad we could have him. And then a week later, Jackie, his secretary, called me back and he said, Mark, Mr. Forbes has reviewed your conference and the speakers and the panels and the discussions, and he's changed his schedule to attend all 3.5 days. From beginning to end, he will be there. And he would be in the audience. I could sit next to him. Others could sit. And by the way, we don't have a green room. So speakers are there to attend as attendees and not just speakers. So we have over 200 speakers coming from all over the world. And it's just a very exciting opportunity to get together. So go to freedomfest.com, and we hope to see you there June 11th through the 14th at the Palm Springs Convention Center in California. It's probably best just to fly into LA and take it's an hour-and-a-half drive, maybe 2 hours at the most to Palm Springs, and we're just going to have a great time.
Yeah, so we invite all Polish viewers to come to Alice Springs or Palm Springs?
Palm Springs, California.
Yeah, and
Southern California.
So there is a big opportunity to meet Mark Skousen and also Steve Forbes and many free market economists in the world. You can touch Steve Forbes, you can talk to him. There is a big opportunity. Yeah. So I remember, because I was really astonished. I was 10 years ago, I think, or maybe 12. And I make a picture with Steve Forbes. I talked to him and we discussed. So it was really amazing. Mark, thank you very much for this interesting talk, and maybe see you in California.
In California, absolutely. Well, thank you, Jan. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye-bye.